Recording. Carsten, you here? Before?
Yeah, doing high CPU for me at the moment, so I'm not sure how
Christian, you're
well.
cutting in and out.
Yeah, the problem is that WebEx is at high CPU, and I have no idea why.
Seems like it's fine. You're not breaking up for me.
Okay, good.
Wanted to also open the minutes from last week to see what we said. I posted in the chat as well. Well, let's start. Some administrative for the first item about the CBOR session is being scheduled. So it's 1 hour, and on Thursday afternoon, I posted in the Etherpad the conflicts. I think this is fine. We have until Friday to request in case there is something that there's a conflict, but this is okay. Let us know otherwise. Also, I will send out an email for slots, but yeah, I don't expect difference from this meeting. Let's see. There is still the OID document but I assume since I haven't heard anything from you, Carsten, or that progressed at all, or you're being focused on the documents?
Yeah, I haven't followed the oil thing, but Sean said he wanted to do something there, so I expect a late surprise on November 4th.
You expect a surprise. Okay, I don't like surprises, but yeah. Okay, and yeah, let's talk offline about the agenda for the face-to-face.
Yeah, let me just make one comment.
Sure. I'm not hearing you. Hello?
So there seems to be a new WebEx version. It behaves very differently, but it also runs high CPU on my box here. So I don't.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to say is that JMap is one of Barry's preferred groups. So if we like to have him around, it wouldn't work with the conflict list.
Okay. I mean, there is not the responsible AD, nor I don't know. What do you think? Should we try to?
Well, Barry presumably knows that conflict exists, so unless we have a specific reason for saying we want him there, I think we can live with it.
Might get switched around a little bit. I don't know. it as is, then
I mostly wanted to point it out. We have to act, but
yeah,
I want.
to know. Anything else? Otherwise, short update on the CBOR array tag and sequence. They're both in our editor queue. Congratulations. That was really quick. And yeah, I noticed that the IANA of the CBOR sequence is still not okay, and I saw your email to IANA asking, is it still not okay? I haven't checked, but I assume that there was some question that wasn't answered or something like that. So hopefully they'll get back to you, Carsten, and
Yeah.
so for specifications, with very recent updates, and I think that people here have not had time to read them. Mostly people who were sleeping. Maybe we can take a second to look at them. So I'm gonna give you the, oh yes, and the goal would have been to start a working group plus call from the version that would have come out today. We can, yeah, let's do that now. I'll make you presenter, Carsten. We hear you. You.
Yeah, I'm still having problems here, so
Okay.
there will be some weirdness, but I'm going to try to share my slides. Does this work for you?
Yes, it works.
Okay. Yeah, there should have been a Dasher 8 out today, and right now I only get to work on this at weird hours. The current status is there are 5 pull requests or group of pull requests that were merged, and so in particular we now have an appendix for the non-well-formed examples, and we actually have 1 appendix now, not 2. We now build the definition of deterministic on the definition of preferred, which I think is a better chance at actually being consistent. We remove the concept, but there are still some remaining parts in 5.8. We will get to that. We now have defaults for the JSON to CBOR conversion, and we clarified the tag validity for text 4, which is embedded CBOR, and 36, which is MIME. But we will come back to MIME in a second, but at least it takes the form of 5 124 adds a reference to RFC 86 to the appendix about comparing CBOR to other formats. It seemed to me that instead of updating that appendix, what some amount of probably easy to people do the work, and actually somebody did, in RFC 8618. So we can just point to that. So this doesn't take away from the existing two additional formats. So this is essentially 2 lines or 3 lines of pointing to that RFC. There was a markdown problem, some recent change we made on tag 4.5, so that's really trivial. And Jeffrey mentioned a long time ago that the language on using integers for small keys was a little weird, and that's 128. Fixing that is 128. And finally, there's now a small change. That just makes sure that the term is in the, but we're not trying to invent new terms. That distinguishes the data model level data items from the serialization level data items. So I think these can be ticked off pretty quickly. So I'm just waiting for Paul to. And then we have the non-trivial one, which is a rather big pull request, the 127. There was some remnants about the tag language. Actually, there are still some remnants about the tag language that we could address. But I think the most important parts are done now. We have some more cleanup of the terminology we now have a term called tag content, which we occasionally use. So the thing that is in a tag, tagged item, we call it tag content now, because tagged item is not really clear whether it means the item without the tag or the item with a tag. And 5.3 has been split up into basic validity versus tag validity. So the tag part now is separate, and it actually talks about visible content values now that wasn't in the previous version of that sections. But for some tags, of course, it's important that not only the type of the content is the wrong is required by the tag. Optional tagging in the document, and I try to get rid of this. So basically the idea is that there might be some protocols that allow you to put a tag, but don't really need that, because the information how to interpret the data there is already provided by the schema. And in protocols we have done recently, we always have avoided doing that. That's not a good thing to do, because in the end it means you have to interoperability test both variations and so on. It's much better to simply decide whether you want to tag somewhere or not. So optional tagging is not really happening very much in practice, and so
Karsten, we lost you.
as keys,
Oh, yeah.
and these big nums actually encode the same value using. Pardon me?
Karsten, you're mostly cutting out in the last 60 seconds.
I'm not hearing anything.
Can't hear you, Carsten.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. It's using up a lot of CPU on my machine.
Try. Are you doing via the browser or?
No, I have the application. The application apparently is a new version because it had a lot of cleanup in the dialogues. It's much better now. But CPU.
Mostly we can hear you, but then there are like longer periods, like 5 seconds, that we completely miss what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a typical symptom of high CPU because things get queued and sent at some point, but then at some point the queue actually needs to be flushed, and then you miss
Yeah, but
piece.
it seems to be working now. So
Okay, so I was talking about the semantic equivalence tags. If you have say big nums as map keys, and these big nums use different representations of the same number, which is possible with leading zeros. An implementation that actually is using the semantics of the tag as key and not the syntax. So there is some text covering that as well. And we could add some of the talked about. That is not yet in there. So there was no obvious place to put this, so I didn't put it in. So this is something that probably needs a lot of scrutiny before we put it in. There is some work remaining, unfortunately. So I think that there are some 10 issues open. There are 2 issues that I think we can close now. And I think I just need some 5.8. Lawrence pointed this out. And the remedy is, I think, obvious. Move most of the text from 5.8 to 5.3.
lost you again, Karsten. So
There is some stuff in there that
we lost you for a moment. The last thing I heard was move most of 5.8 to 5.3. Try to use the browser version of WebEx to see if that helps. Me, but
No, I'm losing it too,
didn't hear what you said.
much of it.
I said that I lost you. Last thing I heard was to move most of 5.8 to 5.3. Then I didn't hear anything. And I was saying maybe if you could try switching to the browser version of WebEx.
How do I do that?
So you have to, I guess, leave the meeting and then go back to, let me link the WebEx link, or you have it in the slides anyway. And there is,
Yes.
instead of joining, there is next to it, join via browser or something like that.
Okay. I will try.
Or yeah, you can probably stay in the meeting while you try to rejoin the browser. To leave. In your browser. Some of
Really weird. Yeah, but it doesn't.
So I don't know if Carsten can hear. If you're trying to communicate, use the chat. I'm not sure that we can hear you. Carsten again.
Can you hear me?
It doesn't break connection again, but
Yeah, I have no idea whether I'm really using the web version, but at least it says it's in Chrome now. So maybe that's good enough.
your one that you were using before. So using your CPU. I don't know.
Yeah, I had to kill that process. So I couldn't actually do anything on my computer anymore. Can I share from the web version as well?
So I just made you presenter. So the ball, it says.
So where do I do that?
I don't know because I'm not using the version.
I don't know if your screen, there are bubbles and one of them is like a bucket with an arrow, which is share.
Ah, well, that appears to be a beta feature. Now it's stuck again.
I posted the slides, and I can also share if you prefer slides.
Yeah, there are only 3 slides left, so maybe that's easier.
I share them.
Okay, I think we were on slide 6. Yeah, so the idea was to merge these 2 sections, make sure we have less redundancy, and really separate the discussion of deterministic encoding from the discussion of validity. And then we have 2 paragraphs left in 5.8 that really are about security considerations, and we might want to move them there. And in Lawrence's comment, there's also the idea of CBOR firewalls. I'm not entirely sure what that would be.
Section 5.8 does discuss firewalls today.
Yes, but does it discuss CBOR firewalls?
That's what I thought it was.
I think it was more about firewalls looking at CBOR data and making decisions based on that CBOR data, but CBOR firewalls. So you wouldn't talk about the current certificate firewall, even if it does something with less.
Okay, well, that's what I was thinking about when I thought of CBOR firewalls is some firewall that looks at CBOR and
Okay,
rejects it, or so that's all I was thinking there. So maybe that's not the right terminology, but some discussion of any discussion about firewalls processing CBOR, I think would be better in a separate section.
go to the security considerations, or do we put it somewhere else?
I think somewhere else. And I have a pretty strong opinion that they're just a nice to have. They're kind of a little extra, bonus security. They're never to be relied on.
Well, that's true for firewalls in general, but yeah, okay. I'm going to make a proposal for that later this week. Okay, but at least we don't need the term CBOR firewalls, which I think is good to know. So that's the biggest one, I think. Then we have a few minor items to discuss. Slide 7. The binary MIME thing. We made the mistake in 2013 of saying that tag 36 is only for text-based MIME, and that is of course not true. not useful. And yeah, we already have tag 257. So we have a number of things we could do. We could simply ignore the whole thing and not discuss it. Or we could add a reference to the registration of tag 257, which would not be a normative reference, of course, just to complete the picture.
Yeah, so I missed the 257 in my read for some reason or other. Somehow it's not, I don't know. I guess I should go back and check.
It's not in the document, it's in the registry.
Okay. That's why I was confused. Okay.
And my proposal was not to deviate from the decision we made that we will only discuss the tags that are in 7049. But at this point, just add a reference and say, if you want binary MIME, there's another tag you can look at.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That would have solved it for me. Because yeah, I remember we discussed it. Then I was surprised to not even see anything there. One other question though, there's really three types of MIME. There's 7-bit MIME, which is US ASCII less than 1,000 characters per line. 8-bit MIME, which is actually allows the 8th bit to be set, but it's still limited to 1,000 characters per line. And then there's binary MIME. Maybe so I'm not clear. Tag 36 is clearly 7-bit MIME, and tag 257 is clearly binary MIME, but where does 8-bit MIME fit?
Well, that depends on whether it's valid UTF-8 or not.
It's not UTF-8. MIME is never UTF-8.
Well, that's not true. If you happen to have 8-bit MIME that is entirely constructed from UTF-8 characters, you can still use tag 36. But I think the normal situation would be to put 8-bit MIME into tag 257. Do you think there is a need to identify MIME as 8-bit MIME?
I'm just trying to be sure I'm clear about what's going on here. It's kind of, and I guess that's true that you could represent 8-bit MIME with UTF-8. Seems a bit weird, but
there is certainly 8-bit MIME that is not UTF-8. So that would always have to go into byte strings.
well, 7-bit MIME, no, there's no question that 7-bit MIME would fit in a text string because it only uses the US ASCII characters, and that's the UTF-8. US ASCII is the 7-bit characters in UTF-8. And if you're doing 8-bit MIME, I mean, you could have a content, text type with a character set that's not UTF-8.
Right.
It'd be UTF-32 or something, right? So that seems pretty weird to slot that in as tag 36.
Yeah, so I think that the normal thing you would do is put it under tag 257.
Right. So maybe it's worth mentioning that tag 36 is 7-bit MIME and tag 257 is 8-bit and binary MIME. I don't think people use 8-bit or binary MIME much. It's primarily 7-bit MIME, but
can do that, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good to me.
Okay, the next there was an issue 67 about handling unknown tags and unknown simple values. I think that there is some pretty good text in there now. The question is, do we have to expand on that? Do you have an opinion on that?
Whereabouts is that text?
It's issue 67.
No, the text in the document.
I think it's in several places, and some of the work on section 5.8 and 5.3 will probably move it around. Let me try to find it. There is a section 5.4. And there is some text in 5.8, and we would probably consolidate this a little bit. So maybe we can just try to handle 67 in the work for 122. You really need to read Jeffrey's issue there. I'm trying to pull this up. Yeah, I think this is really a detail that maybe we can address in 122.
Yeah, I think this is fairly small. Yeah.
And then there is this number 63, which I think is hard to solve because it's an unsolvable problem. And we essentially have to say how to properly live with that unsolvable problem.
Given that what we're talking about here is something you're not supposed to ever be in a situation of doing, I'm not too sure I care about telling people how it has to be solved in any specific decoder.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good description of where we are or where we were. But I think Jeffrey wanted to be a little bit more specific here, but I don't know how to do that.
Why don't you ask him to provide a pull request? And if he doesn't, we'll go ahead and just close it.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, then we can go to slide 8. So we still have the not a number thing, where I think 99.7% of all CBOR applications don't care, but we should explain how to run bombs. So this is the discussion we had on clamping unit arrays to the power of 10, because if you manage to smuggle a signaling NAN into an application, that might blow up at any place. So I think that needs some discussion. But on the other hand, we do want to allow the use of all IEEE 754 if applications really want that. So my proposal would be to say that sane CBOR implementation should provide this one quiet NAN that the text is already talking about. And there might be options in the API to enable more if the application is up to handling this. But really the default to one NAN only. So since nobody on the call actually cares about floating point, I think that's hard to discuss. We have to find some people who do care about floating point.
I care, I'm just not up to speed on this.
Yeah, 7049 was kind of cavalier about NANs and essentially was mapping everything to the single quiet NAN, but that's of course not quite true. So actually, when IEEE 754 was revised last year, they actually put in some more text about the same problem. Because they also noticed that the way NANs are handled creates interoperability problems. But we really probably would need an expert on this to do exactly the right thing here. So leaving it to the implementers to provide great APIs to different versions of handling this sounds like a good cop-out.
One parser that actually cares about it will get it right.
Most likely. Okay, and the final issue 92, Peter Oxel noticed that there are some tags out there that are a bit weird because they care about the relative order, and at the data model level you don't know the relative order. So we probably need some text somewhere and haven't quite found the right place that explains that this is something you can do, should not do. And that's it. So if you want anything else fixed, please write your issues now.
On number 71, that is described valid, invalid for every type. In my last read, I went through everything and checked that, and my conclusion is you can close that.
Yeah, can you please close it because it's your issue?
Oh, okay, I see.
And the same is true for 45.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
So the plan now, Karsten, is to do the updates that we discussed and contact Jeffrey and yeah, everything we talked about. When will we get the next version to be able to start the working group last call?
I hope by the middle of next week.
Next week. Sounds good. We do have a next interim in 2 weeks. That would be, I think, the 6th of November. So today is after the submission deadline.
Yes.
If we need it, we would. I guess then we will have started a working group last call. I wanted to, yeah. I don't know if we'll get any comment by then though, because
Right.
of submission deadline. Let's see if we still have it. If it brings up anything, I think we might cancel it. Don't have much to talk about. Make sure to let me know. And also, I wanted to point out that the time for US people is different. I think because we changed time.
That's true of next week, but not of the week 45. So at that time we are aligned again.
Okay. Then discard that. That's good.
So we have to do something about the core interim next week. But fortunately, it's only one week where we are out of sync in the 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. So we will wait on this on the next update, and looking forward to the discussion with. Let's see if Jeffrey.
Yes, and please do review pull request 127.
That too.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry for my technical problems. Hope to be set up better next time.
This worked, so that's good. At least we fixed it. Then we can close the meeting. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.